Internet. Worldview Everlasting here with a Dropkick scattershotting the entire meaning of the book of 1 Timothy just for you. Those of you who follow the show, you might recognize this challenge coin, which somebody gave me this past summer at the Issues Etc. conference, because I showed how there was a chiasm at work in a particular bit of theology. A chiasm is something that is from Hebrew thinking based on what we would normally call the letter X, but which is chi or chi in the Greek alphabet. And what scholars discovered, and I think it was already pretty well known in the ancient world, was that in Hebrew poetry particularly, they would bookend what they were talking about, kind of running from one idea, like as you would kind of rhyme your ideas instead of your sounds. And so you would go A, B, C, 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 B, A in your rhyme scheme, but again, you're not rhyming sounds, you're rhyming ideas. And in this, it's not that the bookends weren't important, but that the actual meat, the real heart of the thing, was what was at the center. And what you find in the New Testament is especially Hebrew thinkers like St. Paul tend to do this even in entire letters, like in the book of 1 Timothy, which in most churches you're going to have chapter 2 this week, and the next week you'll have either chapter 3 or chapter 6. We pushed everything ahead a week here so I could get as much of it as possible into the pulpit. So we have chapter 3 this week. We'll be doing chapter 6 next week. But again, I want to show you the chiasm. I want to show you how the entire book hinges together and what you find at the meat, at the heart of the key, the chi, the X, right? So the book of 1 Timothy is all about what Paul calls good doctrine. That is, I would say this in modern language, healthy truth. Doctrine, dogma, it's a great thing. It's truth that never changes. It's something that's the same yesterday, today, forever. No matter what culture or context you find yourself in, it is not relative at all. And Paul wants Timothy as a young pastor to make sure that he stops people from teaching unhealthy truth, false doctrine, and he silences them and puts them in their place, says, teach the good truth which you've been entrusted. If you follow through to the end in chapter 6, you find the exact same thing as how he closes the book. He says, make sure that you preserve, protect, guard, teach, cherish this absolutely true doctrine. And in the middle then you have sections that deal with human life. In chapter 2, you got man and woman in their relationship with each other. Then you have man and woman in their life in the church. And then you have the office of the ministry as well being talked about in the church. And then at the end of the book, you also close with a section on human life in the church, particularly a bit dealing with widows, but also dealing with like how the rich and the poor should act together, how the young and the old should act together, all that kind of stuff, right? So Paul says, hey, Timothy, I left you there to set everything in order and make sure you teach what is in accord with the healthy doctrine. And so he says, don't do all these wicked things. Here's a list of sins not to do. Tell people to live this way. Here's the law. The law is good if you use it justly. It's in accord with healthy doctrine, but it is not the heart of healthy doctrine. In fact, it's almost out of the blue that in the middle of the book, he jumps aside and he says, right after he's talking about the law in all of its heart of what you should be in the church, people, man, woman, pastor, everybody, he says, oh, and by the way, the mystery of godliness is great. You want to be godly? There's a mystery here, and it has nothing to do with the law. He doesn't go on to say, now here's how you achieve it. He just turns on a dime. And he says, the mystery of godliness is this. Christ Jesus died. Christ Jesus was raised from the dead. Christ Jesus ascended into heaven, and he will come again. He says it this way. He was manifested in the flesh, vindicated in the spirit, seen by angels, proclaimed in the nations, believed on in the world, and taken up in glory. That is the meat of the gospel, the meat of healthy doctrine, the thing that holds the entire thing together. What's at the center? Jesus Christ crucified for you, healthy truth that makes you alive by bringing the forgiveness of sins, hope, and eternal salvation. 1 Timothy, you preachers out there, make sure you get that Christ crucified out onto the airwaves of their ears, yeah? And you listeners, listen for it, live from it, long it, teach it to your children, learn to silence those who would teach something different, yeah? All right, we'll catch you guys on Friday with an Ask the Pastor. Rock on.